All right, good evening and welcome to Offstage Live with the Jazz Arts Group. My name is Zach Compston. I'm the Director of Education and Community Engagement for Jazz Arts Group here in Columbus. We are so thrilled to have you joining us for another episode. During these crazy times, these episodes have served to be such a source of inspiration for us, and we're thankful to know that that it has been the same for you all as well out there. As a reminder, you can get all of these live streams by following us on Facebook at Jazz Arts Group and at the Jazz Academy. And we also have them going live each week after the live streams. They go live on YouTube. If you follow Jazz Arts Group on YouTube, there's a playlist for all of the episodes of Offstage Live. Before we welcome our guests for today's episode, I would like to let you know that if you would like to donate to the Jazz Emergency Fund during this time right now, Jazz Arts Group is working diligently to support musicians and continue to do the great work that we do for students, working with Columbus City Schools and serving to do everything we can to keep the jazz alive in Columbus. So if you would go to jazzemergencyfund.com, you can make a contribution and any small gift will matter. We're continuing to support students, support musicians, and keep our doors open throughout this pandemic only with the help of your gifts. So if you be so inclined, please go to jazzemergencyfund.com. Also, we'll let you know that if you have a ticket for a March or April show, you can donate that ticket. You can go to Kappa to do so. And so if you do have a ticket for the March and April shows, that money goes right back to Jazz Arts Group if you were to choose to donate that. And that includes the Columbus Jazz Orchestra shows in March and April, as well as Melissa Aldana, which was scheduled, Jazz at the Lincoln, scheduled in April. So without further ado, as I mentioned, I'm so excited for all of these episodes, but this one hits very close to home. In my role as the Director of Education for Jazz Arts Group, I've gotten to see some amazing things happen with students through jazz. And one of the things that we've gotten to see is students not only go through our programs and receive all of the instruction that we have to offer on Sundays, but choose to take that music and push it forward into their lives and make jazz a core part of their lives. We have 4 individuals that are alumni of our youth jazz program here with us today. And the unique thing about them is that they were each for 1 year all in this program together. They have many stories to share. And without further ado, I'd like to welcome my friends to the Offstage Live world right now. So come on in, you guys. How's it going, everyone?
Good.
So we have with us, as I mentioned, 4 alumni of our program, 3 from just this past year, 2019. That's Miles Smith there on the trumpets, Devin Coons, saxophonist, and Abhik Mazumder, piano. And we are very, very excited to have back from the 2016 edition of the band, Miss Jailynn Lake-Noel. Jailynn is a graduate of Gahanna-Lincoln High School, and for 1 year was a part of the youth jazz program as a senior when the other 3 gentlemen were freshmen. So it's so good to see everybody.
Great to be here.
Yeah.
So I'd like to just start out, and I want to actually start with you, Jailynn. So as I mentioned, you were a 2016 graduate of Gahanna-Lincoln High School. That makes you coming up in the end of your undergraduate degree. You were at the University of Louisville, and you're studying music therapy and jazz. First things first, just tell us in general, just what has college been like for you? What has been your focus? It's been a minute since we've seen you. And also just maybe a little bit about the chaos that is this current time that we're in late in your undergrad.
Yeah, so college has been really exciting, a really great experience. I've met so many new people, had like so many awesome experiences. I was able to, build up my presence there in the city in Louisville in a similar way that I did back home in Columbus. It's the program there is really awesome. Of course, it's always nice to have Jamie Aebersold there every summer for the camps. So I think this whole experience in the school particularly was a pretty good fit for me. As for all of this craziness going on, it definitely came a little bit out of nowhere. I was just, getting ready for this last semester of my 4th year out of 5. My friends and I were all planning our senior recitals. Things were going underway. We had all of our rehearsals scheduled, and then we went on spring break, and then we never came back. So it was definitely something that was a little difficult to get used to. I guess like the school had hopes that we would come back in April. Um, my recital was actually one of the first ones to get canceled, which was a bummer. I did get to play in one of my friends' recitals before they stopped doing them entirely. And so I think that's been really the hardest part. Like, we planned all these things with each other, recitals and concerts and performances,
Right.
and not being able to fulfill them. And also just like all this time has gone by and like not being able to go out and jam with my friends like we usually do.
Right.
Like, just I feel like now I took a little bit of that freedom to do so for granted now that we can't do it.
Right. Talk just a little bit, Jailynn, about it's so wonderful to hear that the University of Louisville has been so great for you. I know that because you're doing a dual major in music therapy and jazz, you will get to come back for one more year to finish up that dual track that you're on. Talk just a little bit about two things for me really quickly. One is, how do you feel that your bass playing and your playing as a jazz musician has grown? What are some of what just a couple lessons that you've learned in the college music environment? And then tell us a little bit about why music therapy and what it's been to kind of pursue both tracks in your education and what you might do with that moving forward.
Yeah. I definitely think, looking back on old recordings of performances that I did in high school compared to now, it's like night and day, the growth that I've been able to experience. And I'm really thankful for all of my professors for like helping me get to this point. I feel like I've had a lot of breakthroughs in terms of my playing, and then again that comes from like my professors, and also being able to play out around town and have all these different experiences. Kentucky being the bluegrass state, I've actually gotten to do a lot of like country music kind of stuff, which has been really interesting. That's like not a genre that I'm totally familiar with. And of course, also since we're so close to Jamie, since he lives just across the bridge, I've had plenty of opportunities to go to his home and play with him and play with a lot of the musicians that you hear on his play along records.
Right.
That has been like, I would not do it any other way. Like, I'd do it all over again. It's just been really great. As for the music therapy and the why, it's actually like, I don't know, because I don't think I was really set in studying music. I think a lot of people find it surprising, but I don't think I was really that set on studying music in college until like the middle of high school. I was still very much wanting to be a doctor. That was my dream job, and the music, well, I guess at a point it grew into more than simply a hobby. I mean, in the beginning, when I was starting out, I definitely thought of it as something that I was doing because, I wasn't like really into sports or anything, and this was something that I could excel in. But yeah, I didn't really think about like maybe I could actually do something with this until high school. But there was still that part of me that really still wanted to find some way to provide help and assistance to the greater community whenever I could. And I was actually having a real like dilemma in my mind by the time senior year rolled around in high school, because I was like, I have an idea on where I'm gonna go, but like, what am I gonna do once I get there? And I was just having a real hard time. I was like, man, like I could go to school just for music. And that, but then it's like, and then what? Like, do I want to try and pursue this to like a professional level and be out like all the time playing gigs, which would be really fun. But I think I've always been like super practical as a thinker. I'm like, I don't know how long I could do that realistically. And
That's all right. That's all right.
But I was like, yeah, I still really have the desire to go out and help people. And an upperclassman, an old upperclassman from when I was still at school in Gahanna, she actually went to OU for music therapy. And she had come back and she was telling me about it. And I was like, because I had never heard of music therapy at that point. And I was like, this actually sounds like a coincidence that this just happens to blend together two things that I really want to do, being music and helping people. So I did a lot more research on it, and I shadowed some music therapists at Children's Hospital downtown. And once I got to U of L and like actually took a look at the program there, because it was like just set, like this is exactly what I want to do.
That's great.
And it's been really great being in the program with all of my friends, and all of my professors are really nice. The fact that the school even has this degree where I'm able to do both jazz specifically and music therapy at the same time was like, I feel like they just made that for me.
Well, look, you know, the entire time that you were in the youth jazz program, and I do have to show, before I get you to play, just some classic photos here of your earlier days with the youth jazz program. The entire time that you were in the program, there was a cool, confident, but always supportive feeling from you. And it was something that was very clear from the start. And so it makes total sense to me why you chose to go that path to do jazz and also to continue to help people. And with that, would you mind playing a short piece for us?
Yeah.
We would love to hear you play some bass. What are you going to play for us?
I think I'm going to do The Days of Wine and Roses. It's become one of my favorite songs during this quarantine period.
Fair enough.
At a good level.
Yeah, sounds great.
Awesome.
Beautiful. Thank you, Jailynn.
Thank you.
That was so nice, man. Your sound is as big and beautiful and commanding as I remember it. And you sound really great. What a beautiful voice you've got on that instrument.
Thank you.
It's a shame that unfortunately this virtual space that we're in, the audio is never as good as the real thing. But that just gives us just a teaser. We're gonna have to pick up some recordings of yours, and we're gonna have to certainly gonna have to, when you do your senior recital, we're gonna have you stream it so we can share that with our
That's definitely in
yeah.
plans.
Yeah, very good. Well, transitioning, Jailynn, there was one individual that you were in the band with in this group, and that's Mr. Abhik Mazumder. Abhik, you were a freshman when Jailynn was a senior, and we went to New York City that year. That was our 25th anniversary, which is crazy to think about. I just want to show this photo before we leave Jailynn for a moment here, because I found this just a moment ago before we started.
My gosh.
So there's 2016 New York City. The CYJO played Dizzy's Club Coca-Cola. That's the entire group. You can see Jailynn right there.
Oh my gosh.
There's Mr. Abhik Mazumder, freshman in high school, Upper Arlington High School. And if you don't mind, Jailynn, sharing one of the first things you said to Abhik when we got onto the Zoom stream here. Come on.
I just can't believe how much he's grown. Like, I mean, like I was a senior and he was a freshman, and he was the kid in the group. It was like, it was just a beat. And I mean, I follow him on Instagram and stuff, so I get to see, like, I've been able to see a little bit of his freshman experience. I can't believe it when I see, I'm like, he's a young man now.
That's right. That's right. And one thing I remember from that trip is just how much you guys as a rhythm section stuck together. It was just so fun. And all four of you have been on a trip of some kind with the band now. And just what that does for the camaraderie. I definitely saw that happen. Even as a freshman at Abhik, it seemed like you were so very welcomed into the fold that trip. Abhik, tell us what's going on in your world. You're at Indiana University. You're studying both classical and jazz piano. Give us an update.
Yeah, so we were supposed to, I'm sure this is what most schools were planning on doing at first. We were supposed to go back to school April 6th. That obviously didn't end up working out. So we're doing online schooling now. It's a little frustrating because a lot of lesson times are just spent trying to get connection to work. But
Right.
yeah, so about my first year, as you said, I've been doing both classical and jazz performance degrees. And something unique I've gotten to do in the jazz program there is I'm part of a band that it's directed by John Raymond, who's a trumpeter, who he was in New York for a while, if you guys don't know him. But last year, his group was, yeah, that's John right there. Last year, his group was like a regular big band, but this year, because we had so few trombone majors, it's a completely different group, and it's 6 horns and 6 rhythm section players, and we do all contemporary jazz music. So basically nothing before the 90s. And the last few months we had been doing all music from this century. So I got to do a lot of stuff with playing the synth and just playing all sorts of different electric keyboard sounds and playing with another keyboard player. I thought that was definitely a highlight. And being introduced to so much modern jazz and like fusion and funk and all that modern jazz adjacent stuff, which I'd never really explored that much before. So
right, I remember seeing there was a social media post that you made maybe in the fall in one of those concerts where you were playing, a synthesizer, and just how different and new of an experience you were talking about that was for you. And there was a little clip of a video of you playing a solo, pitch bending and everything, and playing the synth. Talk just a little bit about, and I want to talk about the classical side, but talk just a little bit about that process of playing entirely contemporary music, and what did you have to change, and what was that experience like, to especially transitioning? You were such a studied acoustic piano player, to dive into the synthesizer side of things. What was that like for you?
Yeah, it was definitely a whole new world of stuff that I had to dive into. For one, I mean, obviously the music that's come out in the last few years is a lot less easily accessible to anybody. It is accessible, of course, in the sense that we can listen to it anywhere, but it's not like part of it's not like part of the jazz tradition yet, I guess. And so we had to basically learn all that music ourselves by ear, and then we actually did all the arrangements ourselves too. And the instrumentation for a lot of them is weird, and the instrumentation of our group is also really strange. So translating that stuff from the records into the group that we were playing in, that was definitely a new experience for me. I'd done arranging before, but not for a group that was unconventional like that.
Right.
And as far as synth playing goes, it was definitely a big change, just focusing on playing one note at a time. I've always kind of focused on harmony the most. So I always think about the chords I'm playing and the colors and the textures and how I use the pedal and stuff. So when I was playing synth so much, that completely changed, and I had to focus completely on just the vocabulary in one hand. And so I did a lot of deep diving. I transcribed Michael Brecker, I transcribed Corey Henry, and McCoy Tyner, just to get that kind of burning, like crazy right hand chops going.
Right.
So yeah, that was new for me, and I definitely was more of a straight ahead player before, and now because I had to study that kind of stuff my playing is definitely a lot more dissonant, more abstract, and it's introduced me to a lot of new things.
Well, it's so amazing to me. We were playing together in the youth jazz program not even a year ago, and just how big of a change that 1 year of college can have. Real quick, I want to show one more photo that displays the total other half of Abhik Mazumder here, being the classical side. It's not easy to study one musical form, for your degree, let alone two. I did two different degrees, jazz first, then classical, and you're doing both at the same time. Not easy. So talk about the decision to do that and what it's been like so far to try to balance both sides of those worlds.
So the decision.
First of all, what's happening in this photo other than the standing ovation that it seems to be happening? What concert is this?
So I participated in the. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I participated in the piano concerto competition that IU held back in January, and there were 6 competitors, and I was named the winner, so I got to play with the chamber orchestra, and this is the concert that I got to play at as a result of that in February. So
wow. Congratulations on that.
Thanks.
With all the things you have to do, and we're winning concerto competitions, studying 251s and McCoy Tyner, and then winning concerto competitions.
Well, so about that, I wanted to do something a little different, so I actually improvised my cadenza for the concerto.
Nice.
Yeah, I thought that would be a nice touch to. First of all, I didn't learn the written one, so
yeah,
I kind of had to come up with something. But I wanted to do something to represent the jazz department. I think it gets overlooked a lot.
Yeah.
It's kind of a hidden gem at the school.
I agree.
And yeah, it was. I also wanted to go back to the roots of how they would have played it back in the 1800s. That's what this would have done. So I just thought maybe it would draw attention to that a little bit, but
right. Well, we are so proud of all of those accomplishments, and I want to hear you play as we get a little bit further into this. But I do want to transition because I was sent another photo here that Jailynn, you are the through line of all of this program, because there's yet another connection here. And I was reminded when I saw this photo that we put a gig together at the end of a year that Jailynn, I think it was your freshman year. Miles was now in the CYJO, and it was a small group gig, calling tunes. And it was at the Westin Hotel. And that would have been one of the first times that Miles, you and Jailynn would have played together, which brings me to you, my friend, Miles Smith, trumpeter extraordinaire at Ohio State University, studying with the great Byron Stripling. All the students at Ohio State have had the privilege of studying with Byron. Talk just a little bit about, first of all, that gig there, that the photo that I showed would have been maybe one of the first small group gigs that you were asked to do. Talk just for a minute about that, and then give us an update on your life here in the middle of studying jazz studies at OSU in the middle of a pandemic.
Of course. That performance seen in that photo with me and Jailynn, I do need to note, Abhik was behind on the piano behind me, and unfortunately was cut out of the photo. But we give just as much
by your handsome trumpet playing self.
I had to steal the show, you know what I mean? It's just something I do. And I'm sorry, Abhik. This is my formal apology. But that is very close to me, because that is one of the first performances, one of the first gigs and small group performances I did. And it's something I always refer back to, as to playing with the people I love to play with. I think that was the first time I had played with Jailynn. And it was a really good experience. Just it was one of those experiences. It's good to know how to adjust to your setting, how to adjust to who you're playing with, because it might be different than who you're used to playing with. So you have to, use all your senses and everything you're taught. Okay, how can we make this the best performance as possible? Even if people are walking around going and not really paying attention to you in the moment, what matters is what's going on with you, with your fellow musicians and stuff. And that was a lot of fun. Jailynn, do you remember that performance? I'm curious. That was a while back.
No, yeah, I do remember that. Oh
Yeah.
my goodness.
I remember on a whim, I was like, we're putting together a youth jazz performance. Your family had already moved to Indianapolis because what people need to know is that as soon as you graduated high school, your
Yes.
family left Gahanna, Columbus area, moved to Indianapolis to be closer to family that they had further into the Midwest Chicago area, right?
Yes.
And so I threw out a lifeline of like, maybe Jalen's around right now and can come back. And sure enough, here you are.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm so glad for that.
Hmm.
Because I do remember that concert. I do remember that performance at the West End. I remember having a really good time there. Just just playing tunes.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting to hear on everyone's experiences now.
Yeah.
They've kind of almost gotten their freshman year of college out of the way.
Right. And so Miles, freshman year of college, you had been in the youth jazz program for so long, and we might come back to that because there's a story I might have you tell. But in the meantime, you're now a freshman at Ohio State. One of the things I tell everybody is that, the youth jazz program, we're so proud of the work that gets done there, but our students, as soon as they leave, they become their own individuals. Youth jazz was just an experience, a chapter in their life, and we're proud to claim you when we can. But really, I've seen all four of you do incredible work. So Miles, talk about your year so far, the ups and the downs when you include the current times, and just give us an update.
Of course. For the most part, it's been a very positive experience. My first year at Ohio State University, my first year in the collegiate world. It was a bit of adjustment at first to get used to not at about 3:30 p.m. on Sunday afternoons going down to go to the Lincoln Theater. And it's still weird. I'll tell you what, it's still weird. I wake up and I'm like, I don't have to go anywhere today. It's a really weird feeling because I was so used to every year going down and getting my education with jazz at the Jazz Arts Group. And instead, of course, being at Ohio State with all the ensembles, doing all my schoolwork. And it's been, like I said, positive for the most part, very challenging when including my personal life, people I love, people I care about, including the schoolwork that has to get done, the concerts, as well as the performances outside of school. Those gigs I might get an invite for, or something, a connection between somebody I know or people who don't know me and want to include me in some type of project. And it can be a daunting thing being a person who is known to say yes to a lot of things because it can get in the way of the schoolwork, or if you want to think about it the other way around, the schoolwork can get in the way of the music. And so
Right.
it's a hard life trying to balance everything. And it keeps you on your toes, keeps you really focused and aware. But it's a good thing because it's taught me to handle situations when I have a lot in my hands and I need to do something about it and need to do something with it, be as productive as possible. But it's been very positive. Of course, everybody can relate to how sudden things just came to a stop. It would have been nice to have things just slowly slow down. And for a minute there, it seemed as if that's what was going to happen. Maybe we were going to go back to school and then all of a sudden, like it all drops and
Right.
nothing's happening. Everybody's on lockdown. And but that being said, I'm glad I had the experiences I had when I had them prior. Being able to do all the things with school and outside of school, it's been a very productive year and I've gotten a lot of stuff done.
That's great. Well, two things on that note that I wanted to talk about. One, as I sort of mentioned earlier, you've had the privilege of studying with Byron Stripling privately in the jazz trumpet studio. Columbus is so fortunate to have someone like Byron right here. And he's done an incredible job of both being man about town and doing all the incredible things he does, but also committing to OSU. I've seen what that's done for all the students there, but talk personally about what has it meant to start your freshman year off studying with somebody like Byron Stripling?
It has meant a lot. He has been a very, very, very big help for everybody, not just myself, in focusing on how to connect the music on a personal level, how to get your fundamentals down, how to swing like he can swing. It's not easy stuff, but he does his best and he does a great job of putting these things into perspective so we can all understand in a way that relates to us. I do have to mention beforehand, the person I was studying with before Byron Stripling came to Ohio State, Anthony Stanko, who was a big help. He continues to be one of my biggest inspirations. He was doing his thing before last year, and I was looking forward to coming and studying with him. As much as I miss him, we got a very good replacement, you could say, as somebody to come in and fill those shoes. And Stripling did not have to come in and do what he did and teach this year for us. But I think he knew what was going on, and it was a short notice, as we had mentioned, and it was something I think he thought he could help out a little bit, and he has done so tremendously.
Well, it's been so fun to watch the jazz department at Ohio State. I've told everyone that they are always doing their best to put the students first and to create experiences. We've had incredible collaborations with Jazz Arts Group over there. Can't say enough good things. And the last thing, Miles, for the moment that I wanted to talk about, you mentioned gigs. And of course, it's the balance that all young jazz students and players are juggling, is that, so much of the education is learned on the bandstand. And I can remember being 18 years old, freshman in college, getting asked to play background music gigs and cocktail hours, country band gigs. I know, Jailynn, you mentioned getting into playing some country. And it is a juggle, but there's that, it lights a fire inside of you that while you're studying, and you have to take care of business on that side, that this is really the fire that keeps everything going. So one thing in particular, we've had the fortune of watching you sit in the section with the Columbus Jazz Orchestra on our educational shows. I've been very privileged to be there with you. Certainly believed in you and your ability to be in that moment with the CJO. But talk about that experience, as I show this photo here, of getting with the Columbus Jazz Orchestra and sitting in the section for those shows.
Yeah, that has been such a wonderful experience. I remember you sent me the text that day, about a week leading up to that first performance. And I had to reread the text because I wasn't sure if it didn't say Columbus Youth Jazz. Did I miss a Y in there somewhere? And maybe he sent this to the wrong person. This was performed. And so it was extremely humbling, but it was an amazing experience to be able to sit there. You spend all these years in the top balcony of the Southern Theater looking down on this group and thinking to myself, okay, what would it be like to be in this group? What would it be like to play and sit with all these fine musicians who seem to really know what they're doing? And that performance and that invite was such a testament to the youth jazz program and all the things leading up. Moments like that are huge because they let you understand that the work you're doing means something and that it's going somewhere, that it's headed in a positive direction. There's always a whole lot of doubt, for everybody, whether you're a great musician or somebody who's just starting to learn, and it was good for me to sit there and be like, yeah, I guess I'm doing something right here,
Right. Well, you more than rose to the occasion. It reminds me of myself being in college and hearing my professor, who's the drummer in the CJO, Bob Breithaupt, came to me one of my earliest lessons and said, because I wanted to switch from one of the music industry tracks to jazz studies. And the thing he asked me, and I'll never forget, and maybe you guys had a moment like this with a mentor, where he said, in order to think of yourself as a performance major, because that's what a jazz studies degree is focused on, can you see yourself in your instructor's gigs sometime in the future? Mm-hmm. And that wasn't some, ego thing. It was just to be a performer, to your point, sitting in the balcony of the Southern Theater. In order to do what you have to do as a performer and reach the level that you want to reach and put in the hours, you've got to have that vision. And I'm curious if you would agree with that.
Of course, I totally agree. Something I do often, maybe not often, but every now and then I should say, I go on the internet and I'll look at what people are up to. When I was in my senior year of high school, I'd search up other senior bands that were involved with essentially Ellington program and see what all these other bands are doing. What I always ask myself is, can I do what they're doing? Whether it's to the very technical standpoint or to a larger picture, or if somebody is a trumpet player and they're playing a solo and they're 19 years old, such as myself, I'm thinking, okay, can I do that? If I can't, maybe there's some more work that needs to be done for sure. There's always more work that needs to be done, but those are also very humbling experiences that teach me, teach myself what I need to do, how I can further extend my abilities and stuff like that.
Right. Well, I want to transition, Devin. I see you getting antsy here on your screen, my friend. Devin Coons, go ahead and unmute yourself.
That's my bad. That was not an antsy thing. I was just I'm in a swivel chair. So.
I'm teasing you. I'm teasing you. You know I love you, Devin. We go way back, as do all of us. Like Miles, you are in the Jazz Studies program at Ohio State University. You, like Abhik and Miles, graduated last year. Talk just a little bit, and I've got some photos and things I want to ask, but just talk about what your year has been to date, the transition from high school to college, and just talk to us just a little bit about what the experience has been like, and fill us in on what your life is like.
Well, college, to start out with, going from high school it was definitely different, but I actually felt like I had a good footing because of the program that I was in, Limworth. They kind of gave a college experience that that prepared me for starting life at OSU. So when I got to OSU, I felt pretty at home with the longer classes and the broken block schedules, and I thought it was really great starting off. I also can proudly say that college has been the best I've done academically ever. And
Why do you think that is?
I don't know. I always kind of struggled with school and balancing priorities, but when I got to college, my drive changed because I think I got even deeper into what I had already known would be my future, and that being music and specifically jazz. It definitely gave me the motivation to buckle down and really give it a shot. I feel like some of my previous experiences were it was my fault that I never really gave anything a shot. And when I got to OSU, I loved that math class that I took. I loved that first English class that I took, and
I don't know. I don't know, Devin. I don't know if I can believe that. I'm looking at Miles and Jailynn right now going, wait a minute.
He's totally lying.
I swear. No, I didn't. Some of the classes I didn't like, but I can tell you right now that my math and my English, it was great. And piano skills is a drag, as everybody knows. Sorry, Abhik, but you're not taking piano skills. You wouldn't know. But that was kind of a drag, but I wanted to give them a shot, and they have also become my favorite things to do, and that I was looking forward to. Unfortunately, before all this happened, I was looking forward to getting up in the morning and going to piano and going to theory and going to oral skills and working on it, because it made me a better musician. The curriculum, it was right for me. I think from the start, and it's a mixed bag. Of course, there's other stuff that I would like to do.
Sure. Well, I want to ask you, one thing that's always been unique about you, Devin, and I noticed it from an early age, and maybe this is having a father that was a jazz musician or what, but you had a hunger to be on the scene, playing gigs, learning who the most important players were in town. You always show up at the jam session. You're always trying to pick the brain of elder musicians. Talk just a little bit, as I show this photo, you had the opportunity to stand on stage with the tenor titans of Columbus, this being Eddie Baird and the great Brian Olszewski, Kevin Turner there.
Yes, sir.
Talk about this concert, but also talk in general. You've always just had that curiosity for what the people, the elder musicians and people ahead of you, so to speak, are doing to make it happen. So just talk a little bit about that and how that informs your development.
Well, I'd like to first say that I don't really know where that came. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, we're good.
The green thing is not on me. I don't know.
Yeah, we're good.
I don't know really where it came from, because my dad, I don't know if he was like that when he was a kid, but when I started going out, like right from the jump, when I got my driver's license, I went to Vaughn's that Monday, and my dad was scared. He was scared for me. He was like, "What are you doing, man? You're just going out there. You're not really caring what people think about you." And I think,
and I want to interrupt you, Devin. Tell everybody, you said you went to Vaughn's. What's Vaughn's? Of course, many Columbus folks know and love Vaughn Weister. Tell everybody what that experience is and what you did that Monday night.
So that Monday, I went to this place called the Clintonville Women's Club, and it's home to this regular sight reading big band that comes out every Monday night and has been doing it for the past 20 some odd years. I think it was 24 or 25 this last year, and that band has just been so great for me, and it's always been there. It's always been a place where I can go and converse with the elder musicians, as you said. And I think it was one of my very first gigs when I was around 16 or 15. So that's basically what Vaughn's is. Do you want to add anything more specific?
I just wanted to make sure the audience understood that. As a young high schooler sitting in the saxophone section, sight reading a song with a big band that's been doing that for that long, that's a pretty daunting task, is it not?
Oh yeah, it was scary. I was definitely, I was not good at sight reading, and I knew it was something I needed to improve on. So I just went and I sat there Monday after Monday, and I would talk to Vaughn. He would say, "Bring your horn," and I did. And I did that for a couple weeks where I just sit in for a couple tunes, and then eventually Vaughn was like, "I need you next Monday. Can you bring a flute and clarinet?" And I said, "Yes." And I did not really know how to play flute or clarinet, but I knew that to get the experience and to get the chops for it, I just needed to do it, and
Right.
I needed to suffer through until it became just a part of my playing. Which,
Sure.
Thank goodness that he was there, because that happened. It became a part of my playing. It became, part of my identity. I was now able to carry around that title. It was like flute player or clarinet player, or, I can play alto, I can play lead alto, alto 2, I can play Baird, tenor 1, I can do whatever. That was like, that was the big thing. With Vaughn's, he gave me an opportunity to expand my horizons and give my playing a new identity.
Right. Well, your playing has certainly evolved, and your passion for the music has always been undeniable. I mean, when you were an 8th grader, you were excited about music, and I know that's the case for all 4 of you. I want to ask just a few slightly more lightning round type questions to each of you. Starting with one album. Doesn't have to be the best album, your favorite desert island album, just one that's on your mind right now, or one that you can't stop going back to. Let's start with you, Abhik. One album that we need to recommend to our listeners that you can't stop listening to or are currently listening to.
Sorry, my connection is terrible. You cut out during.
That's okay. Did you get the question though?
No, I didn't.
Okay, cool. So you're up on one album. It doesn't have to be the your favorite ever. It could be just one album that's been on your mind or that you can't stop listening to.
Recently, or
it's up to you. Whatever you want to mention to the audience.
Well, this isn't really jazz, but I've been listening to, I don't know if you guys know the band Moonchild.
Mm-hmm.
Their album.
Jailynn, you might not be able to see Jailynn expressing herself about that.
Yeah, their album Voyager and also their album Little Ghost I can't stop listening to them.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been listening to Voyager for, several months now, like in my top rotation. Yeah, that's great. Miles, what about you, man?
I'd have to go with Miles Ahead from Miles Davis. I believe it was 19 to 20 piece band back in the 50s, I believe. And that is one of my most influential albums for me, something I listen to very often. And it's something I refer back to in my playing often as well.
Oh, nice. Jailynn, what about you?
Ooh, this is a hard question because I'm always trying to listen to a whole lot of different stuff. But I guess if I was going to tell the audience about a single album that I enjoy, it would probably it'd probably have to be ooh, 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 ooh.
It just has to be one. It can be anything.
Yeah, I've actually been listening to a lot of jazz pianists recently. Been wanting to work on my piano skills. And I've been listening to a lot of Ahmad Jamal. I've been listening to the Cross Country Tour album that he did with his trio. I think the years are 1958 to 1961. My absolute favorite song on that whole album is I'll Remember April. They don't do it how you would expect them to do it.
Okay, all right. Yeah, we'll have to check that out. That's good. I love that trio. Devin, what about you? Just one album you want to share with our audience?
I think one of the albums that I've returned to a lot is by Felonious Monk called "It's Monk's Time," and I actually discovered it maybe a year or two ago, but I always have been coming back to it because of that tenor player Charlie Rouse that's on it. He's
Right.
probably been one of my biggest influences, and his sound on there, especially on this one track called "Lulu's Back in Town." After a huge 2-minute stride piano solo intro by Monk, he just comes in and it kind of sounds like papers ripping. And I've never heard that of a saxophonist. I don't think, unless you're talking about Paul Gonsalves or Stephen Riley. And also there's this track on there called "Stuffy Turkey" that has probably one of the best pockets I've ever heard between Ben Riley and Butch Warren on bass. It's just killer. It's to die for. It's so swinging. And it makes me very happy when I hear any of that.
That's great. So then the next question is, what is one non-musical hobby that's helping you get through these crazy times that we're living in? And let's start with you, Miles. Non-musical hobby.
Non-musical hobby. Working out, probably getting as active as possible, whether it's in my room or outdoors or anything like that. Anything I can do to just stay healthy and stay active.
Do you have a workout of choice or a type of exercise that you particularly like doing?
Yeah, like every morning, once I get out of bed, I'll do push-ups, I'll do sit-ups, some crunches and stuff like that, just to stay in shape, just to feel good, and it could get a good jump start to your day.
You're also trying to make everybody else who's watching this and quarantining that is getting up not doing that feeling very inferior to you. So well done.
It just I try.
No, it's very good, very good. Jailynn, one non-musical hobby.
Cooking and baking. Any of my friends know that that's kind of like my secondary thing that I do besides music. Always making something for some sort of event. Someone could mention offhand, like, oh yeah, my birthday is like in a month or so, and I'll remember it. Show up with a cake.
You have a little bit of a crazy baking lady look on your face when you say that.
Any and all of it. I actually feel the same way about it, as I do with music. Just the look on people's faces, when I'm able to share something like that with them and they can appreciate that. I adore that when I'm able to do that musically. But then with baking, it's because this is just something that I'm making out of nothing, and I'm putting it out there. And my baking is pretty well known in my college group.
What would you say that that people if you could poll people for their favorite baked good of yours, what do you think most people would say?
My cookies, definitely. Everyone's always asking about my chocolate chip cookies.
All right.
I'm going to make them next. How many can I bring to the party? That's the number one thing.
Well, as you're transitioning back to school, you could spend some time setting up a little carryout operation,
So many people have told me that. They're like, you could like set something up like online or something, or like
Yeah.
just something like put a flyer out and people can just buy cookies from your apartment on campus.
Right.
Like, I really just might have to set this up now.
I'm saying that'll bankroll that last year of college pretty easy for you. That's great. Abhik, a non-musical hobby, my friend.
So I'm a big soccer fan. I can't play for my life, but I do love to watch it. So obviously there are no games going on right now, but I have been going back and watching like reruns of old matches from years ago. It's a good way to pass the time because it takes up at least 2 hours to watch one. So
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Very good. Devin, what's a non-musical hobby that you've been up to during these times?
I've been kind of catching up on some reading. I got this great doctoral thesis from Jay Miglia on Dick Oates by another guy, and I'm kind of starting to carve into that. Sorry, it's kind of music related. And I also just got a PS4 today. And I've been playing a lot of Spider-Man PS4.
Well, and you have a younger brother, so that probably lends itself well to hanging out with your younger brother.
I just told him that I had it. He nearly exploded. So, yeah.
Oh, that's great. Well, it's nice to hear that you guys are keeping it light whenever you can. Also taking care of yourself, Miles. Shaming everybody in that department. Thank you for that. A couple more questions before we close up because we're running low on time. I want to go around the table and I want to have you give one phrase, one word, just very short when I mention a name to each of you. Jailynn, I want to start with you, and I want to start with somebody who has commented on this stream telling you how proud the entire Gehenna family is, and that's Kelly Shellhammer, your jazz band director at Gehenna. One word, one phrase about Miss Shellhammer.
Oh my goodness. Outstanding, amazing, wonderful, beautiful. all of the one words. She's just so great. I was actually supposed to go down there to the school and come back as a guest artist last month, and that got canceled. So I was kind of upset about that, but I'm glad she was able to tune in, and she's just amazing. She's wonderful.
Well, the entire community loves her for what she's done in her entire career and continues to do with jazz education. Miles, probably, I would have to say, maybe one of your first ever mentors, another fellow band director, your father, Mike Smith. Tell us just a couple words, phrases about the importance of Mike Smith in Miles Smith's life.
Oh my goodness. Too many words that could fit the description of Mike Smith, but I'd have to go with influential, because he's taught me most of what I know. He's the one who told me to get involved with the jazz arts group when the time came, and influential and powerful because whatever he says, even if it doesn't seem like it's the truth, even if I don't trust him about it, it normally ends up going pretty well. So.
Nice. Well, we love him for doing that as well. And he's been such an advocate to the youth jazz program on so many levels. Devin, a tenor player extraordinaire that I know is close at heart with you. You've spent personal time with, and he's mentored you. And that is somebody that has long been a lion of tenor playing in Columbus. And that's Mr. Eddie Baird. What's Eddie Baird mean to you, Devin Coons?
There's so many words that I could describe him with, but I think the first word that comes to my mind is like hero, influential. He's almost been like a second father to me. There's so much I could say on him. He's taken me so many places and shown me a whole different world um, of jazz and of music in general. He's an inspiration. If I had to really put one word, it'd be inspiration.
Absolutely. Very good. Abhik, there's so many names I think of for you, but one that is close at heart with, I think, the entire Columbus community. And you had the unique privilege of being maybe one of the last students of, and that's the late, great jazz pianist, Mark Fluky. Talk just for a second about Mark Fluky in a few words.
A few words. Well, I think his personality had a big reach on people, and I think everyone who was surrounded by him took after his personality a lot. And he was just such a gentle and caring and sensitive person. And yeah, I mean, I just think it was really inspirational how he could reach people, both with his music and just with his kindness. So
absolutely. And I'll never forget receiving an email from him really before you were of age to join the youth jazz program saying, you got to get this young student in. And so I know how influential he was to your early development. And all four of those individuals and your comments, I'm sure they all are very, very proud of the work you've done, all of you to date. And I could go on for hours with this conversation, but we've come to the end of our time together. It's been so great to talk to each of you. I want to close with Abhik, if you would like to play something for us. But first, sure. I want to go quickly around the table. You guys' generation, if that's the formal way of saying that, is at a unique time. And it's a time that hasn't happened to anyone else's generation. You are transitioning into your early 20s, your formative years at a time that has a lot of uncertainty. But the four of you have committed yourselves to music as your primary means of getting through. Let's go quickly around the table and just leave one piece of something that you're holding on to that others maybe can hold on to push themselves through during this time. Let's start with you, Jailynn.
Yeah. Wow. I guess the one thing that's really keeping me together during this whole time is connections. Whether that's with family or friends. I'm really happy. Even though I'm not in school, I am home with my parents. So I'm happy to be able to be with them all the time. And also just like all of the people that I've met, and just the fact that even though we're not together physically, we still find different, cool, interesting ways to get together and be together. So that connection is really helping me a lot.
Right. Absolutely important too. Devin, what's one piece of positivity you're hanging on to during these times?
It's probably pretty similar to Jaylynn's, and I'm guessing going to be similar to everybody else's. Is mentorship for me has been the biggest factor when I'm thinking about the other side of this and what it's going to be like when I get to do my first gig at Dick's as a leader. I know that I'm going to have great people by my side playing with me. So just like if I were to name some people that have just kept me going, I'd probably have to say Vaughn, first and foremost, Derek DeCenzo, Bobby Floyd, Reggie Jackson, Jim Powell. I mean, there are some, Jay Miglia, Brian Olszewski, Alex Burgoyne. All those people have, you, Pete, George, Eric. All of you guys. That's what keeps me going. It's the mentors I have.
Beautiful. Miles, you're up.
I'd say just looking back at all the memories, all the performances I've done, since that's the thing I probably missed the most throughout this time. I played with everybody in this chat at the moment, thinking back to our performances. When I got a chance to play with you, Zach, at the Vanderelli Room, and got a chance to play with everybody, the Columbus Jazz Orchestra, the small group thing I did with Jailynn, seeing her at Jane Abersol camp. I mean, like, the list is already large with what I just mentioned. To expand that across everything I've done over the past 7.5 years of me playing trumpet, it's very expansive, and it's my my favorite memories, things I love.
Beautiful. Finally, Abhik, what's keeping you going during these times that you want to leave with everyone else?
I also have to say, keeping connections with people, just letting everyone know that you're still thinking of them and that you miss them, and finding ways to spend time or collaborate on stuff virtually, and just keeping contact with people, and just making sure that everyone knows that you still have each other.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I want to leave the four of you knowing that, like I said, I could do this forever, talking with you guys and hearing what's going on in your lives. I guess I'll leave it best said with your fearless Columbus Youth Jazz Orchestra director, Mark Donovan, who I spoke with just a couple hours ago, and he said that all four of you are a testament to the scene. And that sounds like a Mark quote, and that's exactly what it is. He says he loves you guys, so proud of you. Can't wait to see you guys next time, and that you're a testament to the scene. And with that, Abhik, will you play us off? What would you like to play for us?
I'd like to play Moon River.
Beautiful. Standard Moon River. Abhik Mazumder, take it away. Abhik, that was beautiful, my friend. Thank you so much. There are no more words that need to be said other than that, you all. Other than it's been so great to see you, all four of you. We are so proud of you. I was just saying to someone else that things are starting to take their toll in this pandemic time. But seeing the four of you and seeing what you're up to and hearing the positivity, Abhik, Jailynn, hearing your beautiful music has warmed my heart, and I hope it has for you guys too. We are so very proud of you, and we'll have to do this again next time. Thank you guys so much for joining us tonight, and the best of luck to you as you go forward.
Thank you, Zach.
Thanks, Zach.
And I'd like to just tell everyone before we close today's meeting that today's Offstage Live, that you can go to jazzemergencyfund.com if you feel so inclined to support the Jazz Arts Group during this time. There's so many things to support, and we do thank you for thinking of us. If you are a member of our close family and you are moved by the work that we do and the students that we reach and the musicians that we put on our stages, most of all, we hope that you are safe and healthy and taking care of yourselves and each other. And we will be back this Sunday with the artistic director of the Columbus Jazz Orchestra, Byron Stripling, and none other than Mr. Ken Poplowski. We will see you next time. Thank you so much.